I'm joined now by the man, the myth, the legend, Purple Heart extraordinaire, American warrior, Sean Parnell. I mean, you're the man. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
I'm just a middle-class kid from Western Pennsylvania that loves hanging out with the people. You know, it's amazing.
And I can see that you're really mixing it up with neighbors and friends. You've run for Congress, you run for the U.S. Senate. Important national security things have happened in the last 24 hours. The IDF really going in hard on Hezbollah, going into Lebanon to really hopefully end this war once and for all. Mossad doing some extraordinary tactics in order to stop some of the top commanders, and really incredible things that we're seeing. Very sad, but also it looks like we're coming to an end with this. Can you share some of your thoughts on what's happening in the Middle East?
Yeah, I wish it never happened, you know, and I think it's the price of weak leadership in our White House. You know, 3 years of the Biden administration, and of course now Harris running at the top of the ticket, has been very taxing, both domestically here for America, but also abroad. I can say confidently that none of this happens if President Trump is in office. And it all started with the disastrous surrender from Afghanistan. Projected American leadership, American weakness all across the world. Putin saw that, invaded Ukraine, and shortly thereafter you had China talking about invading Taiwan. And then now, because we've lifted sanctions on Iran and paved the way for them to get a bomb, and I'm sure you saw Secretary of State Blinken saying, yeah, they're a couple weeks away from getting a bomb. Well, these are because of the policies of the Biden administration, lifting sanctions. And, of course, Iran funds Hezbollah. They fund Hamas. Hamas conducts the attack against Israel. All of this chaos that we're seeing in the world right now can be laid right at the feet of the Harris-Biden administration. And it's sad because it shouldn't be happening.
I think about Robert Gates, a former Secretary of Defense. He was in the Bush and the Obama administrations. And in his autobiography, someone who's been very, I would say, bipartisan or trying to not criticize and critique. But he said that Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of American foreign policy for the last 50 years.
It's true.
Half century. We're expecting President Biden to speak tomorrow, the UN General Assembly. What is his lasting legacy? Does he really have a Biden doctrine? Is there anything to stand up there and say, I'm proud of X, Y, and Z? Because I think for the world even, he's become a laughing stock when it comes to our foreign policy. Yeah,
I agree. I think his legacy is failure. And I think what people will end up remembering about Joe Biden is the fact that, you know, his family, his staff, every Democrat in Congress, most of the people up here on this stage, of course not you, but they covered for his what was very great cognitive decline.
Right.
And I think ultimately that is going to be what people will remember about him. And it's unfortunate, again, because it didn't have to happen, because Donald Trump is in office, it doesn't. Mm-hmm.
Very true, because the way he approached things, we had our friends respecting us, enemies fearing us, but even people like Putin and Xi, you think a little rocket man in North Korea, was actually brought President Trump over that 38th parallel, the first president to do that, and there has not been an armistice. So technically, the Korean War is still ongoing.
Yeah, and here's something that I'd like to talk about. I mean, like, the ultimate measure of leadership is the tenacity with which you pursue peace. And Donald Trump was heavily criticized by conducting diplomacy with Vladimir Putin and Little Rocket Man in North Korea. But the essence, I mean, part of diplomacy is meeting with your enemies. I mean, that's part of how you keep the peace. I mean, like having served in Afghanistan for 16 months, you know, as essentially an ambassador for this country on the ground as an infantry officer, you meet with your enemies to try to broker peace deals. If not, you hope that doesn't happen, but if not, we're ready to go. But President Trump conducting diplomacy with our enemies, I think was very important for our country to maintain our status as the world's #1 superpower. I mean, that's the essence of leadership, is bridging the gap with our enemies to keep the peace. And that's what President Trump did. And ultimately, that's not what Biden has done. And moreover, that's not what any Republican or Democrat has done before President Trump. And you look at everything that's happened over the last 20 years in this country, war in Afghanistan, war in Iraq, what exactly do we have to show for those wars? You know, trillions of dollars wasted, thousands of Americans dead, tens of thousands wounded, hundreds of thousands with the invisible wounds of war. And for what? Look what happened in Afghanistan with the disastrous surrender. Look at the void that we left in Iraq that gave rise to ISIS, empowered Iran. Nothing but disaster. And Donald Trump offers a different approach, and I'm all for that.